Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Happy hump day, people. Happy hump day. Today is June 10th, 2020. This is the Damien Jones podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Got a little background music for you today as folks come on in the room. Make sure you are sharing this broadcast and liking this broadcast right now. We are going to talk with Texas Republican Party Chairman James Dickey on today's show. So go ahead and like this broadcast, share this broadcast. We've got a lot to talk about with the chairman. We've got a lot of questions to unpack with the chairman. We're going to talk about the protest, the unrest in America. We're going to talk about one of your favorite people, Donald Trump. We're going to talk about how we engage African American voters in the state of Texas. Texas has the most African Americans of any state in the union, and so we're going to talk about that. And so, get your comments ready, get your questions ready. Drop your comments down below. Drop your questions down below. Go ahead and share this broadcast. Listen, tag somebody. Listen, I want a packed room today. I want a packed room today. I see my friend Bob share this broadcast. I want a packed room, so start tagging people right now. Tell me another broadcast where you can get the state Republican chairman for an hour to talk about the issues. We talk about all the time that we want unity in our state, in our country. We talk about how we need to go across the aisle. We talk about it's other people's fault. We talk about unifying this nation and what's been going on in across this country the last few weeks. We need to find places of unity and commonality. And so I don't want to hear the BS and the talk about, oh, it's other people's fault. We have a chance right now today to hear from the other side, live and in person. This is not pre-recorded. This is live and in the flesh. So tag people right now. Tag your friends. If you don't like the Republican Party, tag your friends so we can hear about it. If you love the Republican Party, tag somebody. Bring them into the conversation. We need to have a conversation. We need to have a conversation. So welcome to the Damien Jones podcast. I want to see comments below. I want to see questions below because we're going to ask him some of these questions on the spot. Tell me a broadcast where you can get this type of access and this type of information. So tag, share. I'm going to give you a few minutes to just get folks in the room as well. Write your questions down. Put them in the comments as well. We want to have a great conversation. I'm going to bring the chairman in just a minute, but if y'all can help me, I see 30 live viewers right now. You can help me get to 50 before we bring him in. That would be great. Help me get to 50 live viewers right now, wherever you're watching, whatever state you're watching from. Thank you for being with us. But come on in the room because you probably have the same questions for your state chairman, and you can't get to him. And so we've been able to get to our chairman and speak with him today and ask the tough questions, the real questions, because we have to have access and a line of communication with our leadership across the board, and they ought to sit in the hot seat and answer those questions as well. So come on in the room. Thank you all for joining us today. Listen, people, as we talk about this, we got to be responsible. Register to vote. It's so important that you register to vote. I don't care where you are, what state, where you're from, but we got to register to vote. We can lift our voice and scream to the top of our lungs, but make sure you are registered to vote for whomever. It is the most basic way to lift your voice and participate in democracy. So register to vote right now. You go to my website, IamDamienJones.com. This is Damien Jones Podcast, where we talk about news, politics, and other great things, life in a fun and unadulterated way. I see everybody. So we're going to bring the chairman in just a minute. Make sure you are following the podcast. Go to my page, the Damien Jones podcast. Make sure you are following the page, supporting the page, and also make sure you get the notifications for when we go live. You don't want to miss this great information that we have. And listen, I got a very good guest coming on Friday. You think this one's going to be good? I got something really good for you Friday. So you got to stay tuned for the end of the show. But like, share, and tag. And I also saw what happened down at Houston City Council today. And I'll save that for Friday's conversation. But that's a lot to unpack as well. So as more folks are coming into the room and we are tagging people to come into the room, let me just say this. You know, we talk and we bump our gums all the time about how we want partisan unity. We talk about all the time that we need to unify this country, but we're always pointing the finger. It's the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. So much crap, and we're blaming other people, but we can't find commonality. If you right now ask yourself, what do you agree with Republicans, or what do you agree with Democrats? You don't know, because we are so divided. We can't bring this country together until we find a way to find commonplace and stop being so divided. You may disagree with me, you may disagree with another person, but why do we have to be so divided and take it into our spaces of socialization? Check this out. I read a Pew poll on the political divide, and check this out. This is ridiculous. Among Democrats and those who lean toward the Democratic Party who are single but looking for a relationship, about 70% say they probably or definitely would not consider being in a committed relationship with someone who voted for Donald Trump. In fact, 45% say they definitely would not consider dating a Trump voter. So 70% of single Democrats say they would not consider dating a Donald Trump supporter. Now, that goes on the other side. Democrats, no. Half of single Republicans say they probably or definitely wouldn't be in a relationship with someone who voted for Hillary Clinton. So here you got people that are single, and they use partisan divide to shape their relationship. So you're going to be single for the rest of your life because you don't agree with somebody's partisan affiliation. And so here's what my grandparents taught me. Whenever you point the finger, you always have three pointing right back at you. So what do we win by always pointing the finger and dividing ourselves? And so let's have a conversation today with the Republican State Party Chairman, Mr. James Dickey. Chairman Dickey, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, Damien, and I am so glad to be with you. Am I coming through all right?
Yeah. You are coming through very, 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 very well. How are you doing, and how's the family?
You know, we are so blessed. I've got my son and his fiance. They are at the Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern, and they are together and safe and healthy. And we've got another daughter. She is with.
Wait, your son's a student at Thurgood Marshall?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, good deal. Interesting.
Yeah, well, we laugh about it because we say he's following in my footsteps. Because and we can talk about it a little. But my high school was an all black high school.
Okay.
And so we laugh about how he went to a predominantly white high school, but now he goes to a historically black college university. In fact, actually, that was one of the fun things. At the Republican National Committee, since I'm the state chair, I'm actually on the RNC. We passed some resolutions supporting some of the great initiatives President Trump's been doing for HBCUs. Mm-hmm. And it was my pleasure to stand up in front of the group and say, you know, I hope this isn't true, but I may be one of the only people here who's actually currently got a kid at an HBCU.
Right.
And somebody who does. Thank you guys for speaking up and speaking for the party.
Well, that's good to know. That is very, very good to know. But But before we get into the deep details, listen, I know people want to
Sure.
know where you stand on the protest. I know people want us to talk about Donald Trump and
Of
all the
course.
other juicy
Yeah.
things, and we'll get there. We'll get there. But I first want people to know who you are. And you kind of talked about it a little bit. Where you from, and kind of talk about how your upbringing kind of moved you and shaped you into your political life now.
Oh, it absolutely. I mean, we all are shaped by our upbringing, no question. And I do want to say before I get off into that,
Mhm.
that your point is exactly right. I have been preaching to folks for years that the only way we can grow the party is by reaching out and by reaching out to others. And if we're going to do that, we can't do that by preaching to the choir. We can't do that by being in an echo chamber. We have got to reach out and find commonalities. And it's amazing when you look for those, how quickly you can find them. And in my background, I've got chances where I found those commonalities with the NAACP in Austin, with LULAC, with all sorts of folks that didn't at the top of their head didn't think that necessarily Republican leadership should be on their short list people to reach out to get stuff done with. So we can loop back to that. But yeah. I grew up in Fort Worth, and we had moved there because my dad felt called to ministry, and so we moved there so he could go to Southwestern Seminary. And my folks were not well off. We lived on the south side of Fort Worth. And I remember we were super excited when we could move uptown and move to Forest Hills, which I don't know how much your folks know about it, but it's for us it was a significant upgrade. It was a wonderful place to do. So I went to Morningside Middle School. I went to O.D. Wyatt for a year, and then for 3 years I attended and I graduated from Polytechnic High School. And in my senior class of 206, there were 2 white guys counting me. But I was on student council. I was involved in a bunch of stuff. And one of the things that really touched my heart was to see friends and neighbors that I care about, folks I care about, in a community that was not benefiting from what I was convinced better policies could make the community better on. And we've seen it. We've seen it over and over and over again. Then I went off to Stanford, and that was fantastic. And I had to work like crazy. I worked 2 or 3 jobs and had some scholarships, had some other ways I was able to do it. Did a lot of tutoring on the East.
And you studied political science.
I did.
Okay.
I graduated with political science and English, and Condoleezza Rice was in the political science department at the time. Not only that, but the Hoover Institution was there, and Ronald Reagan was president at the time, and a lot of his senior staffers and the cabinet members came from. He had come from California as former governor of California, so a lot of his cabinet had come from California, and so I had the pleasure of being able to meet as someone in college to be able to meet the then Attorney General, the then Secretary of State. It was really something else. And
so you grew up humble beginnings, in Fort Worth, worked your way to Stanford, got tutored by Condoleezza Rice as well, and so you're just a basic guy that worked your way up through politics.
Well, it's such an American story, right? I mean, just now, I will be the first to admit that there are others who have worked just as hard, and luck always plays a part. I've started 2 or 3 businesses, 3 businesses now, and one of the things I have learned the hard way is luck and timing play a huge part and I see people who work just as hard not get as well off, and so that's there definitely was some of that. I have been blessed, and it matters.
So just reading your bio, and we kind of talked about this before we came on. You became party chairman for Travis County,
right,
back in 2017.
So that was 2014. In fact, this is the message I will drive home to anybody in any community. The thing that gives me chills. The thing that made me fall in love with the Republican Party of Texas is how unbelievably grassroots up it is. People have no idea. I talk to my peers in other states, and in other states, the governor just appoints whoever's in charge of the party, and that's how it is. And there's very much good old boy kind of stuff going on, and that is not how the Republican Party of Texas works. I showed up to vote one day, and the precinct chair there said, "Come on over to come join in on the precinct convention." And the next thing you know, a few months later, I was an alternate delegate to that national convention. I was able to start coming to precinct chair meetings. I was able to start getting involved and then I started a company in Austin, moved down to Austin. I joined a couple of clubs. I started to get active. And the next thing I know, I was elected county chairman of the Republican Party of Travis County. And we did some amazing things there. One of the things we did, we figured out that city council had been ruled for decades in Austin by a small cabal of, I call them, liberal elite leftists, right? Like there was a little part of the richest part of West Austin that's where every city council member had come from forever. And in fact, they probably lived within a mile of each other for the whole time. And so we partnered up with the NAACP and with LULAC in Travis County and got together in Austin and said, let's change the city charter. Let's get some geographically diverse representation on the Austin City Council, and let's make it not 5, let's make it 10 members plus an at-large mayor. Let's see if we can't get some more diversity in representation on the Austin City Council and not have every member come from a little 1 square mile part of the richest part of most liberal leftist Austin. And sure enough, that's what happened. And we ended up getting 3 Republican members on, but we also got Hispanic representation. We got Black representation. We got the diversity we had been working for, and it was fun to work together and make that happen.
And so that collective work with the NAACP, LULAC, and other leaders kind of catapulted you now to being the chairman of the Texas Republican Party. Damien Jones podcast, talking with an exclusive interview with Texas Republican Party Chairman James Dickey, who's come to take the tough questions. So folks, look, we're about to get into the real meat of things right now. So take a moment right now and share this broadcast, like this broadcast, tag and bring other people into the conversation, because I see some good questions in the comments, and I'm about to go to one of those questions right now. So I want you to keep bringing your questions to the conversation, because this is how we learn from one another and find commonality. So Chairman, I'm going to go to a question here. And this is from my good friend, Gavin Norris, who's out there in Odessa, Texas. Shout out to Odessa, Texas, and all those good folks down there. But Gavin says, Mr. Chairman, do you believe in systematic oppression and institutionalized racism or prejudice? 1, and what is the GOP doing to address race issues that we are facing in America?
Well, so one of the things we have seen over the last few decades is we have seen, frankly, we have seen the welfare state in the United States destroy the Black family at a rate that no other effort ever could.
Okay, please
no
unpack
other effort ever did.
Please unpack that.
And so, well, we have seen there is a smaller percentage of Black children born today in 2-family homes than there was in the middle of the worst Democrat Jim Crow policies. And frankly, more than there has been that anybody can find, at least as far as there's tracking. One of the things I have personally fought against and with is the sentencing policies and our over criminalization and over illegalization, right? So last session, for example,
Okay.
I worked with anybody in the Capitol who would work with me, and that included a bunch of Republican leaders, but also included some Democrat leaders, to try to pass what I refer to as the real Sandra Bland Act, because they passed an act they called the Sandra Bland Act, but it actually not a single thing in it would have actually prevented the arrest of Sandra Bland.
Right. That was because I read something this morning that it was from its original version. It was gutted a great deal.
Oh, it's totally gutted. And the Republican Party of Texas, and this is the thing, right? One of the things that I said, I am always trying to focus on finding common ground.
Mm-hmm,
and the Republican Party of Texas, we have a platform. It's got 300 planks in it. Now, a lot of people go, oh my gosh, 300 planks. What in the world? Well, first of all, there were 6,000 bills filed in the last legislature. So 300 is nothing compared to 6,000. But the other cool thing is, with 300 planks, there is something we have in common. If you are any, if you are any kind of a Texan or American, there is something we have in common. And one of the things we fought for very hard was to not allow the police to jail people for Class C misdemeanors, to not allow a policeman to jail someone for something a judge could never send you to jail for. They're just not allowed to. And yet we have this weird anomaly in Texas law right now. And I personally went down and testified against that. And I called it the real Sandra Bland Act, because that's the thing that would have actually prevented that tragedy.
So you agree that there were some questionable things that happened with Sandra Bland's arrest, and we need to adjust some laws to make sure it doesn't happen again to anyone, particularly African Americans, correct?
Absolutely. And the systemic things I want to do include, back to the question, the systemic things I want to do is, and I warned people about this, we had this just a couple of weeks ago, in the middle of all this coronavirus stuff. Actually, it was in March or April. In the middle of all this coronavirus stuff, it turns out that the Laredo City Police Department has a task force that was charged with enforcing the mayor of Laredo's lockdown rulings. And so as if the Laredo police force doesn't have more important things to do than worrying about coronavirus lockdown, they sent undercover operators to go catch and arrest a couple of ladies, one of whom was running a nail salon out of her house, and one of whom was running eyelash services out of her house. And they sent undercover officers who arrested those ladies, and those ladies were facing jail time in Laredo because of runaway eyelash treatment. And every time I see something like that, I try to take advantage of the moment, like I want to do right now, and remind everybody, every law, every regulation carries with it the threat of or else. If you follow this or else, you follow this or else you end up in jail. And the more of those circumstances where we've got more cases where we are thinking about putting someone in jail, the more times we have bad interactions between every community in the police, but especially the Black community in the police.
Yeah.
And worse, every one of those is a chance for someone to die.
Yeah. So let me ask you this quick question, yes or no, and then I'll move to another question.
Sure.
Do you feel like the mass incarceration system in Texas is broken and needs to be fixed? Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So now we've seen the unrest across this country. Okay. We have seen, I've seen some things happen in Austin. We saw some things in Houston. We saw what happened in Minneapolis, LA, New York, across the board. Folks are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Where we are in 2020 and we still have to say that Black lives matter, Mr. Chairman. And so folks are lifting their voice after they saw the vicious murder of a George Floyd. And it is a turning point in this country. where all sides, I don't care what your partisan affiliation is, you ought to have some type of conscience, some type of feeling to say, we got to do something. I've got to do my part. Now, I've seen some PC chit chat from some companies putting out press releases saying Black Lives Matter, so forth and so on, blah, 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 which I think is a load of crap. But in your view, one, what are your thoughts on the murder of George Floyd? And two, what do you think caused the unrest in the streets?
Wow. Okay. So first of all, what do I think of the murder of George Floyd? It's murder, and the prosecutors better get this right, because I'm old enough to remember the Rodney King trials and the Rodney King riots, and what I want to be sure of is that all of that is done precisely right, because we should not stand for that. And so so far, I'm glad to see that all of them are facing charges. So that's good. But you're right. There's a lot of concern and a lot of unrest, and it's up to us. Are we going to put this? Are we going to take advantage of this as a moment to make progress and change for better, or not? Right. And that is up to you. So, and it's up to each of us. I mean, my son's pastor in the Woodlands, he drove down and participated with friends in the protests to say we want things to be better. The Republican Party of Texas state parliamentarian attended yesterday the memorial services and the events in Houston.
And I think Governor Abbott also met with the family a few days ago.
Governor Abbott met with family, and frankly, I was very pleased with the way that Governor Abbott handled it, and everything I've heard.
Why were you pleased with that?
Because I didn't feel like he tried to play. He had to show. He had to be there with family, and it's only right that he did.
Right. I agree.
But there's a line there, and I have seen far too many politicians turn the necessity for them to show respect and be there and listen and turn it into a chance for them to talk about something they wanted to talk about anyway that had nothing to do with this stuff. And frankly, sadly, we saw some of that stuff yesterday. And we all saw it, and everybody's got eyes and they can see it. And that was not respectful. Those lines, when they were crossed, it was not respectful or helpful to the family. I mean, that family, God bless them, they appear by everything to be wonderful salt of the earth folks. And I'm heartbroken that they're facing this. And I only pray that something good come out of this. And the big deal that needs to come out of this, again, kind of like Sandra Bland situation. What needs to come out of the Sandra Bland situation is that needs to not be able to happen again. And the structural thing is police should not be able to arrest you for a thing a judge would never put you in prison for, because that's the thing that would have prevented that happening. What I hate is when somebody recommends a solution that has nothing to do with the actual problem.
And I'm glad you went there.
Floyd, the solution is police should not be able to arrest without a warrant.
Okay.
Period. Okay. Pretty straightforward, structural change. We will see, but I will tell you, so back to my earlier comment, we can and should join together every chance we have shared common goals. We have a platform, texasgop.org/platform, that has 300 items there. I would bet anyone in your audience that there are things in there that they read and go, holy smokes, of course I agree with that one. I'd love to help make that happen. And I'm telling you,
where can we find that platform?
texasgop.org/platform.
Somebody is watching, folks, find that texasgop.org/platform. Find that, put that in the comments so we all could take a look at it.
That would be, by all means find that. And if I'm remembering it wrong, at texasgop.org, there's issues and then there's platform. So I know you can get to it, and yes, please share that link in the comments. But I bet anyone out there can find something they agree with us on, and if it's in there, I'm fighting for it every session. And we fought for and got some good things done last time. And that prevention of jailing of misdemeanors that a judge wouldn't put you in, we were this close. We only lost it in the last 24 hours. And if anything good can come out of all this, I pray that some of the good structural changes we need to make that we can agree on ought to happen. So I'm hoping stuff like that is more likely to get through this next legislative session in January.
Yeah. So, and first, also, let me say really quickly, let me give a lot of kudos to Texas Republican Party Field Director Marcus Johnson, my good buddy who connected the chairman and I. And so, Marcus, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for your leadership as well. You got some good people with you, Chairman. And so you talk about we got to find those commonalities. Folks, look at that platform, find where we agree, right? And you talked about those structural changes and those reforms that need to happen. And you kind of led into talking about police reform. You know, police should not arrest someone for something, one, without a warrant, and two, for something that the judge wouldn't put you in jail for. But the bigger thing, we're seeing chokeholds, these type of tactics, Mr. Chairman. Do you think, well, do we need to ban chokeholds? Where do you stand on this? Choking people. I've seen those where women are being choked.
It sure, yeah. I mean, on the face of it, it sounds really terrible. I don't know. I cannot think of any, I don't know enough, and I can't think of any detail where there'd be an excuse for doing it. I know structurally one of the things I'd like to see the end in other states of police unions and in Texas of the association, because we saw it in Minneapolis, right? Mm-hmm. The union's first response was to circle the wagons and try to defend the indefensible.
Right.
And so the structural change I'd like to see that eliminated. I'd like to see
unions. I mean, how do we fight back? And as I say this, I think we always have to preface this that as we talk about reform, a critique of police is not saying police are terrible, right? No. We support our first responders, law enforcement. Look, I'm a former military person. I understand the tough job that they are doing, but there are bad apples, and we have to get it right. But unions are powerful. How do we work around that?
So the at the Republican Party of Texas, we had a platform item to prevent the state from automatically withdrawing people's union dues, public employees' union dues. And that, when it happened in Wisconsin, made massive changes. And you were right, the unions were powerful. I mean, they fought against that dramatically. But when they stopped going to auto withdrawal of union dues, it dealt them a big blow. Now, everybody's got a right of freedom of association. You know, you and I decide we want to start a group and put it together and start voluntarily donating some money and doing some things. Well, we got a right to do that. Same with associations, but we don't have a right to ask the employer to start collecting the money for us. And to do it automatically. That's what we don't have a right to. So I think that's a big systemic deal, because the defense of all of this stuff, including what we've seen, some indefensible stuff, that has come from those associations and those unions. And there's been a lot of that. And if that was the reaction with police, and that has been the reaction. I mean, I just saw the sheriff's deputy who cowered outside of Parkland for hours while kids were murdered in Florida. He just got reinstated because a union fought against his firing. Yeah.
What? Reinstated to the same department?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what I'm talking about, right? When protecting and defending the community, like the whole point of having the police, when that becomes not just not their goal, but in opposition to their obvious goal, then we got a systemic problem, and that's what we need to deal with that.
Yeah. Damien Jones podcast, talking with Texas Republican Party Chairman James Dickey. Great conversation. You need to tag somebody right now because this is some awesome information. If you appreciate this information, hit the like button right now. Hit the heart button right now. If you disagree, tell us in the comments. I disagree with the chairman. If you agree, tell us in the comments. Be interactive. I see your questions. Going to bring those up as well. But I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Hey, do you want to keep people away from you when you are sick? You ever wanted to self-isolate and people just won't stop bothering you? Well, I have the perfect solution. SorryIamSick.com has great gear and products that would allow you to isolate in style. T-shirts, socks, coffee mugs, anything you want, you name it, they have it. So please visit SorryIamSick.com for their great products, and we are thankful that they have sponsored today's conversation as well.
Boy, what a timely sponsor. That is fantastic. I tell you, we've been planning for our live and in-person convention, July 16th to 18th in Houston. And people have been asking, okay, well, what are you going to do? Because we got coronavirus, what are you doing? Well, we're doing a lot of things. We're working with Convention Center. We're going to have a lot of extra hand sanitizer stations. Tations. We're doing extra sanitizing of all the seating and stuff in between meetings, plus multiple cleanings throughout the day, all that kind of stuff. We've taken up a bunch of extra rooms so we can space out a lot more than we normally would have. We got room, and people have been asking, are you going to require masks? No, we're not going to require masks, but we absolutely will respect anybody's desire to wear one, either for their own sake or for the sake of those they love or those around them, right? That is fantastic. But one of the things that I've said is, oh, and by the way, if you're sick, don't come.
Right.
And I've said that for more than a decade as an employer. I've told my team, hey,
will folks be able to enjoy if they're sick, want to stay at home? Are there live broadcasts?
We're going to live cast the whole thing. We've actually been live casting every meeting of the Republican Party of Texas that we have held since I became chair of the state party in June of 2017. So I've been chair of the state party now for 3 years and a week. And it's been an amazing 3 years. And one of the first things we did was start live streaming all of our meetings. So anybody can watch them on our YouTube channel, and you can see the recordings up there from the last convention, from all the stuff. And that's the other thing I would recommend anybody. Come to the conventions. You are allowed to be a delegate or an alternate to the conventions as long as you didn't vote in the Democrat primary, or you didn't participate in some other party's convention process, so like the Libertarian Party or the Green Party or somebody like that. As long as you didn't participate in any of that, then you're eligible to be a delegate. If you're a registered voter in Texas, you're eligible to be a delegate or an alternate. But even if you're not a delegate or alternate, you're more than welcome to follow along with our convention, and you're welcome to come as a guest as well.
Yeah. So I'm glad you kind of laid that out, folks. You don't get this type of information on any other live broadcast at the noonday hour. This is just great information. I know most of you didn't know a lot of this stuff and didn't know where he stood on a lot of these issues. And so I hope this has been informational and educational for you, Mr. Chairman. And I hope that's some good water you're drinking. I got a little bit here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No. I'm just messing with you. So are you proud of the direction that your party is headed?
I really am. First of all, before we got into coronavirus, we had all seen, and nothing is ever perfect, and there are always ways we can constantly get better. But we had all seen that the implementation of Republican policies, both at the national level and at the Texas level, was providing the most opportunity and freedom and the best economy and the best environment for everyone. Black unemployment was at all-time lows. Hispanic unemployment at all-time lows. everybody was benefiting from the conservative policies being implemented. And I say this all the time. If you just think about it, there's not a grandma in the world who won't tell you that you ought to live in a conservative manner. You shouldn't spend more than you have. You should work hard. You should be proud of what you do. I mean, all of that, those are conservative principles through and through. And it was working. It was working exactly as I knew it would if it was ever well implemented all the way across. And then we hit coronavirus.
Yeah.
And coronavirus, this whole thing has been just really tough, right? It's a tough scenario for anybody, like the president, like the governor. Do you hope and pray that, everybody does the right thing and it isn't as terrible as the people are telling you it's going to be? Mm-hmm. Or do you let fear rule you and you lock everything down and you do everything that you can?
We are a very proud state, so we don't move and operate in fear.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I am proud of is that we've seen when our policies are really implemented, it has worked. Mm-hmm. And in this process, we've seen good, thoughtful, caring leadership. And now as we reopen, we're seeing a variety of Republican leadership opening more quickly and other leadership not. And we're seeing how the Republican leadership solution is producing a better result for people.
Well, let me ask you this question and answer this one in like a minute, because a few other things I want to get to. We've heard critiques from some African-American lawmakers who have said they've called on Governor Abbott to do more as it relates to the impact of COVID-19 on African Americans in the state of Texas. They're asking for more funding, more testing sites, because the data shows that African Americans are dying at a disproportionate rate than any other group across the country, particularly in the state of Texas. Do you think we've done enough? We can do more. What do you say to that critique?
Well, I'm always nervous about giving into the far too common political tendency to solve every problem by throwing some money at it. Mm-hmm. And I both because frequently money is not the solution. We all know this from our own lives, but also because I've never seen government use money ideally and wisely, right? Not nearly as wisely as I know my friends and neighbors and family do. So I'm always a little resistant to that. No question, the statistics show that Black Americans have are at a elevated level of risk and have had a elevated level of impact. Mm-hmm. I'm not a health expert, so I don't know what has driven all of that. Mm-hmm. I do know from my conversations with the governor's team that he is very focused on the elderly and minority impact of this particular disease. And not only that, but he's also very sensitive to the fact that unemployment affects the Black community more as well. And every time recessions have as well. And so there's we've got those challenges.
Yeah. And I want to stay on your time frame that we have. I know you got other things, but I'm going to throw a lot of questions at you quickly here. Okay. This is yes or no. Does the Republican Party of Texas believe that Black Lives Matter?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about some controversy recently. Keith Nielsen posted a picture on Facebook of a quote from Dr. King: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," with a banana beside it. It created much uproar. Cynthia Bram and also Lee Lester also made some very, very, very insensitive and racist comments. You and Governor Abbott and Senator Cruz, and I think a few others, also immediately called for the resignations of those persons for their insensitive and racist comments and actions. Why was that important to you to call for their ouster?
It was very important to me, as we have been reaching out and growing the party, for folks both inside and outside the party to know that there are absolutely personal responsibility lines that we will not tolerate. And that is that bar was set a while ago, and I'm happy to none of this was a good occasion, but I'm glad that there is no doubt that the Republican Party of Texas will take strict and immediate response.
Yeah. Here's what everybody wants me to ask you. Damien Jones podcast, talking to Texas Party 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, whom I personally think is a very interesting guy. Look, the fifth highest rated video on Netflix right now is the Trump documentary. He is polarizing. He is an entertainer. He's something that we've never seen before. But also he's taken large critiques on his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. He's made comments toward Black women that have called them stupid, on several occasions. He has called countries with African Americans and Black folks shithole countries as well. And just the other day, he retweeted a tweet from Candace Owens that talked about and criminalized and really demeaned the legacy of a George Floyd. George wasn't even in the ground yet, and he retweeted such things. And so I know he is the leader of your party, and he is the president of the United States. And so we have to respect the office to an extent. But given all those things, what is it that you support about President Donald Trump?
The thing that frankly surprised me the most and impressed me the most, and that I still am most impressed by with President Trump, is I have never, I'm 50 something years old. I've cared about politics since I was 18, right? When I was at Stanford and studying political science. In that entire time, in the last 35 years, I have never seen any politician so committed to keeping his word.
Okay. Somebody told me that the other day. Those exact words. Okay.
There is a massive list of promises made and promises kept on some website somewhere. I don't even know what the name of the page is, but it is just the long list of things he said, and that he followed through on. And I have never seen another politician.
What are some of the? Well, let me say, what are some of those promises? But yeah, we always talk about we want our politicians to do what they say they're going to do. So right. what are a few of those promises that
one of the ones, of course, I care the most about, because that really stuck with me, because I care about the minority community, and I care about justice reform. The First Step Act. That was a thing that hadn't had much momentum. The president got involved. He said he was going to back it. He said he was going to make it happen. It happened. We had the biggest, on a much more global level, we had the biggest tax reform we'd had in decades, because the president said, I'm going to make sure we have a tax cut. And holy smokes, I mean, I've talked to a bunch of congressmen. The president was all in on making it happen. And just over and over again, I mean, those are two big ones I can think of right off the top of my head. But it's on a range of issues, on a range of things. He wants to deliver on what he said he would do, which shouldn't be refreshing, but it is.
Yeah. Given all of those things, why is it, and there could be a number of factors, but why is it that African Americans are so loyal to the Democratic Party, and by the 85, 90 percentile. And I mean, I'm just going to be frank with you. Whether you're a black Democrat or a black Republican, we're still catching hell, man. We're still at the low end of the totem pole. For all we know, George Floyd was a registered voter. Breonna Taylor was a registered voter. It doesn't, and we're still catching hell. But black folks still are so loyal to the Democratic Party, but most won't entertain coming over and embracing maybe some of the ideas of the Republican Party. Why do you think that is?
Frankly, that's one of the things I don't really understand. We can point to the fact that the black community does not prosper where there is Democrat leadership. We can point to the fact that the black community has been taken for granted by Democrat leadership for decades. Conversely, we can point to the history of the Republican Party of Texas was formed by black men to make sure the freedmen had the vote. You go to the Texas Capitol and you look at the painting still up there of the black Republican representatives and senators who were elected after the Civil War. And our history is amazing. One of my predecessors, Norris Wright Cuny, one of the most influential black leaders in Texas in all of our history, he was super influential in the Republican Party of Texas. All of the Jim Crow laws were Democrat implemented Jim Crow laws. The vast majority of the votes for the Civil Rights Act in '65 were Republican votes in Congress for the Civil Rights Act of '65. And yet, as you said, in recent elections, the percentage of blacks voting for Democrats has been north of 90% far too often. So I don't know what it is. I focus on building personal relationships with folks and focusing on our shared priorities and goals. And the biggest way we did that was by focusing on making sure that we had recruited candidates against every incumbent Democrat we possibly could. And we were shooting for 100%. We didn't make 100%, but we have the lowest unchallenged number of incumbent Democrats in Texas we've ever had. And that included great conservative Republicans, frequently great black conservative Republicans running in inner city areas across Texas right now.
So you're challenging it. You're challenging everybody. You're challenging everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I firmly believe that everybody should earn their spot. I don't care where you are, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green Party, Red Party, whatever. If you want to represent the 29 million people in this state, you ought to earn it.
Right.
And you ought not to hang on to what you've done 30 years ago. What have you done for me lately? And as things change and as the electorate changes and young people become more active and the culture changes, our leadership needs to evolve and change with the culture and have a listening ear. What is your plan? You just talked about kind of your plan and how you are challenging all Democrats, especially in urban areas. What is your plan to engage African-American voters in this state? Because listen, I'm gonna tell you what I'm about. I'm about, and you and I've talked about this, I'm about building black political power. I don't care if it's on the Republican side, Democratic side. I want power. I want freedom. I want access for my people. Right. And the great conversation that, some of the wise men will tell you as black folks, we ought not have permanent friends, if you will. We ought to have permanent interests, and everybody ought to move according to their interests. Now, if you have some interests that are being helped by certain friends, then hell, they ought to remain permanent friends then. But if your interests aren't being met, then you ought to maneuver in a certain way. So I'm about building black political power, and so our vote is so important, Mr. Chairman, and I think you understand that. And sometimes I question whether Democrats understand that as well. But what is your plan moving into this 2020 November election, which is pivotal? Maybe some say the most important of our time, to engage the African American voter who built this country on the backs of their free labor, And all that we ask for is to be respected and protected by law, and to be treated with equal justice and equal respect. What is your plan within the party to engage these voters, these 3 million voters?
So the way we've gone about it at the party in the 3 years that I've been on was, first of all, making sure we were doing a good job casting a wide net for potential employees for the party, because that's where we can start. And we've got great employees in the party. Then the second thing we started doing is making sure we were recruiting candidates in targeted races against incumbent Democrats. And of course, not at all surprisingly, if we're looking for a candidate in the neighborhood to challenge Eddie Bernice Johnson or Sheila Jackson Lee, well, guess who the most likely candidates are going to be in that area stepping up? It's going to be local leadership, and it's going to be Black leadership. And that's great. And so we have recruited right now in Texas, we have 2,118 candidates all over the state. The Democrats only have 837. They have the smallest number of unopposed spots they've ever had. We have the most diverse base of candidates we've ever had, and not because we were picking them based on skin color, but because we were going after incumbents, and we were saying one of the best things we did was tell candidates, prospective candidates, look, if you step up on the Republican side, we don't have a big pool of money we can hand you, but we have great tools. If you run as a Republican in Texas, you will have the backup of our staff, and we've got the biggest staff we've ever had. You'll have the backup of our volunteers. We got the biggest volunteer base that we've had in decades. We have the best phone banking software and block walking software and voter data, and all that's available free to all our candidates. But we offered at very low cost, a one-day intensive, how to be a successful candidate training program. Because there are a bunch of people who think, okay, well, maybe I can run, but they have no idea how it works. They have no idea what the laws are or anything, right?
Right.
And so by being welcoming, putting the word out, we ended up having 33 of those trainings. We ended up having 1,400 people statewide come to these training sessions and learn, okay, how do I either run a good campaign or be a good candidate? And that helped us. We doubled in one cycle. We doubled the number of women running for Congress from the Republican Party in Texas, and we saw huge increases. We had 3 Black Texans running for U.S. Congress on the Republican Party side in Dallas alone this time. Well, and it wasn't because we did things by skin color. It's because we were making the message out. If you agree with us, we will do our job to help you run. And then each one of them brought their own friends and neighbors and volunteers from around the community. So how do we grow the party in the Black community? One, we show we care. We show up and show we care. Right? I mean, one of the reasons why I'm happy and thrilled to be here talking to you is I hope new people
listen. Let me tell you something.
Republican?
I give you a lot of credit, Mr. Chairman. I really do, because there are some Democrats who won't come on my show, who won't talk to me, and it's pathetic, right? And they say they're for the people. They say they want to share information, but there are Democrats who won't come on this show. And so I give you a lot of credit for coming and sit down and talk with us and just have basic civil dialogue about democracy.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and I'm proud that we live in such a great state. I know that there's a lot of amazing talent out there we have not yet tapped into, and that breaks my heart. That wasted resource of the human talent that is out there that is not able to fulfill its potential. That's what's tragic, and I want to do everything I can do to help fix it.
So, and I know we're coming up against the clock, but I got 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
What do you look forward to in November?
Well, obviously, it is my job to deliver victory from the White House to courthouses all over Texas. I am doing all the work necessary to do that. I look forward to having some of our exciting new candidates being able to congratulate them on victories in surprising areas in November. That is what I look forward to. That's what's going to really warm my heart, is to see the culmination of all that. And then, frankly, I'm already thinking about, okay, what do we need to be doing for November 2022? But I will, well, and we have the legislative session coming up in 2021. We need to make some gains there. But I will tell you, we are already going to be recruiting more candidates and registering more voters. We have not, on the Republican side, we have ceded that to the Democrats for far too long. And this last year, we did our biggest voter registration drive we've ever done. I'm super excited about it.
And these are things that you would attribute directly to your leadership, just making some adjustments under your leadership to focus on these things.
Yep. It was painfully obvious to me that for far too long we had been too complacent on the Republican side, and it was obvious to me that complacency not only was never a good idea, it was about to be a really terrible idea.
Yeah. Last question: why is the Republican Party the best party in the state of Texas, in your view?
I got to go back to my earlier deal. The fact that we are bottom up, that anybody can show up at one of our conventions and make the case that, you know, the change to the law that would prevent a tragic death like what we just saw, that they can propose that and get that into our resolutions process in our conventions. And we, the Republican Party of Texas, the entire machinery, will be working to advance that in the next legislative session. It just gives me chills. There's nothing better than that. And so, you know, if you want opportunity and you want a warm welcome, pick something you care about that we can at all agree on, and come on in. The water's fine. I'd love to have it.
Oh man, Republican Party Chairman James Dickey. Hey, this has been a great conversation, folks. If you appreciated the chairman coming and speaking with us and sharing this insightful information with us and taking the tough questions, give us a like, give us a comment as well. Make sure you take a look at that platform to see where we can find commonalities as well. And I need your help. We would love to hear also from our U.S. senators. So we would love to hear from Senator Cornyn and or Senator Cruz. I would love your help to make that happen at some point down the road. But hey, my friend, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I'm a few minutes over, and I hope Leslie isn't mad at me. But thanks so much, and really, really appreciate you stopping by as well. And folks,
it's my pleasure. You've got a great program, great setup. God bless you. God bless your efforts. I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate it. Talk to you soon. All right, folks, that was Chairman of the Republican Party, good brother James Dickey. What you think about his responses? What did you think about the dialogue? What did you think about what he had to say? Now, I'm sure y'all didn't agree with everything he had to say, but I'm sure there's some things. If you didn't find something that you agree with in that conversation, then you're nitpicking. Something wrong with you there. Like, you know, very interesting that his son attends Thurgood Marshall School of Law. Commonality, right? I was very impressed that he pushed for those party leaders to resign when they made those insensitive comments. Very impressed that talked about voter registration and reaching out to Black voters as well. And so these are the type of conversations that we have to have. We talk about unity all the time. We talk about bringing our country together. We talk about getting rid of the divisiveness. When we have these tough issues on the table of police reform, of wealth inequality, and so forth and so on. But we can't come to the sensible center if we don't have conversations. We got to have the conversations. And so I tell you, I learned a lot as well. And so I hope you learned a lot as well. But Friday, this Friday, I got some email exchanges going on right now. I think I'll be able to bring another party chair on this show on Friday, and I will give you the confirmation later today, because we want to hear from the Republican side, but we're going to be fair and also hear from the Democratic side as well. And so once we get that confirmation, we will share it with you. But folks, make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure all this talking that we're doing, all this lifting of our voice that we're doing, it doesn't matter if you are not registered to vote. We got to lift our voice. We cannot hold our leaders accountable, be they in the state house, be they county commissioners, be they city council persons, be they the district attorney. All politics is local. And so make sure you are registered to vote. We talk about these issues, right? If you don't like what's happening with police reform in your city, your municipality, you can't vote out a police chief, but you can vote out the person that appoints the police chief, right? So here in Houston, for those that are mad at Sylvester Turner about what happened today in police reform, well, you can't vote him out anymore. So you got to find another solution. He's term limited. So let's learn how to play the game. Let's learn how to play the game. But make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure you are practicing social distancing. And then next week, I've reached out to a member of Congress who has been in dialogue with me, and I believe we will be able to bring that member of Congress on this show on next week. In addition to, we've got to go back and talk about this pandemic of COVID-19. Folks have been protesting, people out on the beaches, spring break and all this kind of crap. And what I'm reading, the data says that COVID is getting worse and worse and worse. I think Texas probably saw its worst day a few days ago with about 1,300 people contracting COVID in one day. It's getting worse, people. It hadn't evaporated. It hasn't gone away. And so I will reach out to a very well-respected physician and doctor to come on this show and talk to us. Listen, I had to tell, honestly, I told one of my mentees the other day not to go to the rally downtown because they had just beat COVID. And I said, don't go. I know you want to be there. You can be there in spirit, but you got to think about your health. And so don't go. And so we got to be smart about what we're doing. We have to continue to lift our voice. But thank you all. Hate to break up your lunch hour. Hope you enjoyed today's broadcast as well. But until next time, continue to live your life with intensity, integrity, and intelligence. This is the Damien Jones Podcast.